Good evening, and welcome once again to the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And, of course, tonight we have to say Happy Holidays from all of us here to all of you out there. Now, turn that shit off. Okay, so, as you know, normally on Monday nights, now tonight is Sunday night, but normally on Monday nights you will see my new comics, bitches! But since tomorrow night is indeed Christmas Eve, and there were like approximately 20 books this week that I read, I'm not going to be doing a review. I'm not going to be doing a review segment this week because it's just, it would have to be broken up into two parts, and you people are going to be celebrating and everything like that. So I figured, let's cut through all the bullshit. Let's go straight to the good stuff. And the good stuff here in this particular episode of the Shadow Gallery is we'll be doing a special year-end wrap-up in which I will tell you what I believe to be the best artists, best writers, the best, basically, you know, Ghost Critic did this, asked for your votes. I haven't watched that video yet. I meant to before I started this, but I didn't want to be biased in any of the choices that I made. Basically, I'll be talking about the best titles of the year, the best new titles of the year, the best miniseries or crossover or event. I'll be talking about the best individual issues of the year, and of course the best writers and best artists of the year, as well as best kind of crossover, not comic crossover, but a best kind of external, you know, basically best film / TV show having to do with comics. So let's dig right in and find out. Now, really, I didn't really write this one down because I had this one kind of already sort of committed to memory, but not really. So I'm going to go over with you the tops of the best comic book / best comic book TV / film related stuff. Some of this is going to be in kind of no particular order, but the top two will definitely be the top two. The first one that I want to talk about real quick was Dredd 3D. Now, I know that all of you in the UK got to see this, well, most of the people in Europe got to see this before we saw it in the US, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. Obviously, this is the way that Dredd was meant to be put on screen, not the... Admittedly, I do like the Stallone Judge Dredd film because I think it's fun, but it's not cool. It's kind of a fun, just, you know, it's a fun Stallone vehicle, but it's a very guilty pleasure of mine. But Dredd 3D, I didn't see it in 3D, but so we'll just call it Dredd. And that was just a pretty fantastic piece of work. You know, from Pete Travis, the director, you know, whose only credit before that I think was the film Vantage Point, which was a really boring film, despite the pretty good cast that it had. Anyway, so it was just Dredd kind of encapsulated everything that's cool about Judge Dredd and the comics without kind of breaking the rules of the comics. I mean, Carl Urban as Judge Dredd, awesome. Of course, I mean, you know, you can definitely tell that there are similarities between that film and, if you haven't seen, Gareth Evans' The Raid Redemption, which is also a really kick-ass film. Obviously, the two are very similar. You know, it's law enforcement, going up this entire building that's filled with criminals that want to kill, the law enforcement officers that have come in. Just the kind of the vision of Mega City 1, the ideas, the whole kind of with Judge Anderson and so on, and just Lena Headey as Lena Headey, excuse me, it's Headley. No, it's Lena Headey as Mama. It's just a really, really cool film. I'm sure the 3D looks terrific, but I'm just not into 3D movies, so I saw it in 2D, and it was really something. So, number 4. So I guess that would be number 4. I guess we are kind of doing this chronologically. Number 4 would be Justice League Dune, which came to home video, based on the Mark Waid, his first story arc on Justice League of America back in whatever it was, 2000 or whatever year that Grant Morrison ended his run, and he started his one, which is basically the Tower of Babel storyline, which is by far my favorite JLA storyline as is. I mean, just terrific voice work, terrific terrific animation, just how it really worked to kind of put a new spin. So it's not just page to screen, which can be cool sometimes, and it can be kind of a bummer sometimes. But this really worked, and it's just it's a really cool and innovative retelling of that story. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. Number 3, even though this doesn't have to do specifically with a comic book, but it's definitely the most comic booky show on TV, and that is Alphas. That's a terrific program. If you're not watching it, it's on Sci-Fi. If you're not watching it, you should, because absolutely just a fantastic show. Ryan Cartwright, David Strathairn. I mean, it's really intense, really cool, and had one of just an awesome cliffhanger to finish out the season. So it's one of those shows I gotta watch it the night that it's on. So number 2 and number 1 should be relatively obvious at this point in time. Number 2, of course, is The Dark Knight Rises. It was kind of hard to really judge between first and second place, because both of them are achievements in their own right. As a better all-around cinematic experience, I would say that Chris Nolan did an amazing job wrapping up his Dark Knight trilogy. Whether or not this fits exactly into the Batman mold is, obviously it doesn't. I mean, it's not, the way that we always pictured Batman, but it is, the way that we would picture the Nolan trilogy kind of coming to a close here. Just some fantastic supporting performances, particularly by Anne Hathaway as Selena Kyle, and by Joseph Gordon-Levitt as God damn it, John Robin Blake. Or Robin John Blake, however you want to put that. Just a fantastic film. Christian Bale doing his best. Definitely his best performance of all the Batman films. And Tom Hardy also doing an excellent job. I mean, everybody in it is very, very, very good. It's just there are some parts, of course, that are a little bit, but in the larger scope of things, it's not a perfect film, but it's a perfect ending to his trilogy. And I admire the fact that even though they had a lot of story to tell and it's a long film, they didn't take, they didn't kind of extend it out into two films. They could have done a Hobbit, where they're taking one book and they're, a 3-hour film in each book, and they're expanding it over 3 films. No, they didn't go that route. They said, okay, well, this is the film, we're doing it, that's it, just this one part, even though conceivably there is definitely more story to tell, or more story that could have been told. It could have easily been 2-hour films, and I think it would have cleared up a lot of things, a lot of questions that people had, and so on and so forth. But like I said, we didn't need any more than that. We wanted, maybe, but didn't need it, and just an excellent film. Number one, of course, being Joss Whedon's The Avengers. I mean, come on. I mean, I can't honestly think of a more entertaining film that I saw this year. I mean, I can't think of a film that, other than a film like The Dark Knight Rises or Cabin in the Woods, that I've seen like a number of times since seeing it in the theaters. Seeing it a number of times in the theaters, and then seeing it a number of times as soon as it came to Blu-ray. So that's my top 5. Pretty easy. Moving on to best miniseries or crossover or event. This really only had 4 entries because I couldn't really think of a 5th. Because there were, obviously the big event was, Avengers versus X-Men. We all know how much I really hated that. So that kind of, just no. But I would say that the 4 that did exist that really worked were The Boys, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker. That was a terrific mini from Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson. Really, focusing on the life, the loss, the tragedy of Billy Butcher's life. And it works amazingly well. It was just, for a non-serious comic, it was definitely the most literary thing that Ennis has done for The Boys since its inception, really. There's no two ways about it. This was it was incredible. It was very emotional. It was very kind of, it just really captured you from the get-go, and just an extraordinary work of art for, especially for that series as a tie-in. So just, excellent stuff. Number 3 would be the Omega Effect. Basically, your Spider-Man, Daredevil, Punisher crossover, co-written by Mark Waid and Greg Rucka. Just wow. It was so interesting and so much fun. Of course, the art by Marco Cicchetto certainly didn't hurt at all. And just every issue worked. Waid and Rucka had their characters' voices down pat, working together. 2 great creators working together on a really terrific crossover. So it was mind-blowing. The final result of this was it was really captivating, and just a great miniseries, or crossover, I should say. Number 2 was Spider-Men, which, of course, the meeting of the Earth 616, Peter Parker, and the Ultimate Universe, Miles Morales. As you know, if you can think back that far, I was not a big fan of the first issue. I thought that should have been a 0 issue at best. That the rest of the next 4 issues should have just been a 4-parter, because the first issue just was really kind of focusing on Peter Parker and him eventually ending up in the Ultimate Universe. So that just even though the art by Sarah Pichelli is fantastic throughout, it took, the first issue just took so long to get there, but once it did get there, it really just, it really got, you just really had to get into it. I mean, it was such a, Brian Bendis just creating a really powerful story in just those 5 issues. And, even setting the table for something maybe to revisit someday. Because it did have this, this really kind of neat little, epilogue where, Peter Parker is actually looking, when he gets back to 616, he's looking up the name Miles Morales on the computer. And he sees something, but we don't know what it is. So it's like, what's going to happen there? But the number 1 miniseries of the year to me was Rocketeer: Cargo of Doom. Now, this is a series you're going to hear me mention a couple of times during this run, or during this video. It had everything that you want from a Rocketeer story. Of course, Mark Waid, again, writing this, Chris Samney on the art, and just, it's like visiting pulp heaven. It's like, it's just tremendously fun, extremely well written, beautifully drawn, just tremendous, great work from everybody involved, and it just could not have been more of a joy to read. And really that's what the Rocketeer is to me, is that it's an extremely, particularly Cargo of Doom, as being a very joyful experience of reading comic books. It's not too heavy. It doesn't go for, any kind of social commentary. It just tells you a really, really fun pulp adventure. So those are the best miniseries / crossovers for this year. We'll go to best new titles. So number 5 was Harbinger from Valiant Comics. This I've found to be just a consistently really, really, really well done book. It's always been, even, it's in revisiting some of the older issues. I mean, it's not that old. I mean, it's the 7th, I think it was the 7th issue just this past week. But this 7th issue actually kind of sealed the deal. It was definitely one of my picks of the week. But just, Joshua Dysart, doing just a really, really solid job on, creating this universe of, Peter Stanchek, and, everybody who becomes involved, the character of Faith and Chris and, Harada, and, all of the other, Harbinger, the Bleeding Monk, all the other little Harbinger soldiers and everything like that, Project Rising Spirit, of course, all of this leading to a potential crossover within the Valiant universe itself. So, I mean, it established itself as being kind of not the flagship title, because that would definitely go to Exo Manowar, which is also a great new series, but I think this just topped it. This just, edged that out. Number 4 is The Spider from Dynamite Comics. This has just been, it's just every issue by David Liss and Colton Worley, although with the exception of the most recent issue, which certainly not a bad issue, but didn't have Colton Worley on art. He has definitely established himself as one of the artists to kind of watch out for. And I mean, this is, again, really just terrific pulpy goodness. I mean, it's just, you just devour it, and all, like the covers by Francesco Francavilla. I mean, just setting this tone for the series that, even though it's set in the present day, you could still have good pulp fun. So, I mean, I guess you would call this neo-pulp, if you will. But this is just really, really, really exciting comic book storytelling. It's really well done comic book storytelling, and it is gorgeous to look at. So, absolutely one of the best. Number 3 is Fatale. Um, this has just been, again, from the get-go, has been a really, really terrific comic. Some issues, it felt like a bit of a slog at some points, but then there were other issues that Brubaker and Phillips were doing together, just really kicked it up a notch. And, just, wow, I mean, what a terrific, conceptually, it's a book that, it's obviously very high concept, it's just, but it's just the way that they kind of parse it down and make it as, kind of low tech as is possible, but still, keeping this air of mystery about it, that there are so many secrets we don't know yet. We don't know what's coming. We don't know who these characters are. We don't know what they are doing. We don't know their origins. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know where they're going. All we know is that eventually this will all catch up to in the present, where we see Nicholas Lash. And the more we kind of focus in on these stories, the more we just get some really excellent storytelling. Number 2 is Hawkeye. This has just been, as far as Marvel is concerned, it's just an absolute breath of fresh air. It is the most kind of indie feeling mainstream book that's out there. Matt Fraction and David Aja and Javier Pulido do just like eye-poppingly awesome stuff with this book. I mean, it's just this is a book that is always at the top. It's either pick of the week or one of the picks of the week. It's always been, there hasn't been an issue yet of the 6 that have come out that hasn't been an A. They all have been 5 out of 5s. So I mean, that's really hard to do over 6 issues. And so I mean, it's just, tremendous fun, a great sense of humor, a real kind of rip-roaring adventure that blends in so slickly with this, kind of day-to-day, life, day in the life of an Avenger when he's not being an Avenger. You don't get books like that anymore. And it's just a really ballsy move, for a major company like Marvel to take, what is arguably one of its bigger characters right now, because he's in a number of books as it is. He was in the biggest fucking movie of the year, and to take this really kind of, again, just kind of distilling the spirit of good storytelling, great scripts, beautiful, beautiful art, and just, it's just, making you, weep hysterically with laughter. These books are so goddamn funny. It's just, and that's one of the things that keeps me, that will always keep me coming back to this book, as long as people like Fraction are writing it, and as long as they don't play out the whole kind of, if you want to call it a gimmick of the book. I don't think it's a gimmick. I think that it's, I think it's just really excellent storytelling, and I wouldn't mind really if every issue went down the same kind of path. Of course, I know that issue 7 that's coming up is going to be kind of dedicated to Hurricane Sandy, or Superstorm, whatever you want to call it. So, again, to see that in action will also be very, very interesting. So, because I'm not a huge fan of Matt Fraction on some of his other stuff, but boy howdy was I a big fan of this book. Number 1, I don't think we really need to get too much into this, but of course it's Saga. Brian K. Vaughan, Fiona Staples, whatever you want to call it, Romeo and Juliet meets Star Wars meets Game of Thrones, whatever kind of this meets this meets this meets this that you want to throw onto it. It doesn't begin to describe the absolute awesomeness of this book. Every issue is vital. It always tells a story. It always surprises and amazes you, and you really get connected to every character that's in the book. And that is where it really becomes rare, is that when you do get to a point where you feel like I understand these characters, I understand their motivations, I understand where they're coming from, and all these different aspects of a book that normal writers would just kind of coast through or kind of glaze over and just say, let's get to the next kind of action point where we have some real nice things for the artist to draw. Instead of building momentum synthetically, they decide, Vaughn, in his, pretty much eternal wisdom at this point, I mean, because this is a guy who's produced, some of the greatest series of all time, and they're all just classics. I mean, and, and this is shaping up to be, who knows what it's shaping up to be, but it could be, who knows, maybe better than Ex Machina, better than Runaways, better than Y the Last Man. Are these things possible? Who knows? We don't know yet, but we will find out. I can almost guarantee you. So let's move on to Best Artists of the Year. Now this one's kind of in no particular order. I couldn't really put these guys into an order, guys and gals, because they all did fantastic work. I mean, because these are artists that make you keep coming back to the book no matter what, and they're artists that you end up following from book to book. You want to see what they're doing next. You want to see where they're going, what their take on this character or that character is going to be like. So just kind of starting from the beginning, because there is, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 13. Lucky 13. Because I was doing a top 10, but as I continued to think about it, there were more people that I wanted to put in. So some of them were kind of ties. So the first two that I will talk about are Nick Bradshaw and Patrick Gleason. I mean, talk about consistently doing just terrific work issue after issue. Of course, Gleason doing Batman and Robin, and Nick Bradshaw doing Wolverine and the X-Men. Of course, all the best issues, in my opinion, of Wolverine and the X-Men have really been due to the work that Nick Bradshaw has been doing on that book. He just, his lines are smooth and clean. He does very dynamic stuff. Very similar to Patrick Gleason. He definitely, when he does a full issue, it's just you can't help but look. I mean, your eyes just pop a little bit because of the terrific artwork that he's putting in. And it's tremendously gorgeous to look at each page that he does. And, it's kind of this mix of hyper-real and almost cartoony at times. But, Gleason's stuff is insanely well detailed. It's just great work by him. Next two are people that are, that keep doing, fantastic work. One of them is completely new to me, and one of them is very, not old, but I mean, this is someone that I've talked about quite a bit. And like I said, these are in no particular order, really. But Fiona Staples and Sean Phillips. Fiona Staples on Saga, just doing astonishingly good work. I felt that the art sometimes could seem a little problematic to, at first it felt like there were some things that were a little sketchy, and then there were some things that were super detailed. But then again, rereading those books, rereading those issues, you get the sense that, okay, there is more than she's going for than just is, that's just, being, that some of the, some of the exteriors, that she is going for something that is more abstract. It's more scratchy. Not in the sense that it's blurry, but it's, she's setting a scene while, really working to create a real foundation for everything that you see, and just her character, the expressiveness to each character that she gives is just one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's just her and Brian K. Vaughan on Saga, and this is, something you'll hear me say any number of times throughout this, but a perfect marriage of writer and artist. Just excellent stuff. Sean Phillips, again, I would say that I would hesitate to say that he and Ed Brubaker, just over the years, have been kind of the preeminent marriage of writer and artist on a book. The work that he does on Fatale, it's creepy, it's dark, it's spooky, it's very, very moody, but it's also it fits the book just right. Is Sean Phillips going to go off and create some? Is he going to be one of the preeminent superhero storytellers? No way. I mean, his work is very much set in realism. Is he ever going to be photorealistic? No. But he is always going to go for the mood. He's a mood artist. And if his lines seem a little out of place in one panel to the next, it's going to work itself out. So, I mean, this is, it's someone, obviously, that is just a fantastic artist. Sorry, they're 14. My apologies. Next one I want to talk about is Marco Cicchetto. Marco Cicchetto, his work on The Punisher, and of course, doing all the issues of the Omega Effect. Wow, I mean, this is a guy who really, really can draw dynamic. But can really also concentrate on the smaller character moments, which is exactly what Greg Rucka required when he was doing The Punisher. I mean, obviously, the Omega Effect artwork, that's something that was kind of unusual for those books, because Cicchetto doesn't do he doesn't do a lot of action, where it's just kind of balls to the wall. As we saw in that miniseries or in that crossover. But, that kind of gave him a real chance to cut loose and show all the different stuff that he could do with movement and with action. And, and then we have, that great issue in which, the one thing to me that I always think of when I think of Marco Cicchetto and how great an artist he is I think of that issue of Punisher when he and where Frank and Rachel are fighting in the rain. It's just, it's such an incredibly emotional scene that there's some very raw feelings that are coming out of Rachel in this fight. And, to have it set amongst this kind of backdrop of this rain-swept, New York alley, just gave it this this absolute kind of dynamism that really just captivated the audience and the reader, and just said, this is great stuff. This is I just wish that he had been able to do all the issues of Punisher, and I wish that he was doing Punisher Warzone, for Christ's sake, because that would make it a perfect book. But ultimately, we have to work with what we have. Marco Cicchetto, to my understanding, he could not, because of some kind of family crisis, could not continue doing the book. I I just hope that he's going to be working again real soon, because this was, his artwork is so great. Joe Eisma on Morning Glories. Talk about, again, this is someone that's probably not going to win any awards anytime soon, which is kind of a shame, because, again, he and Nick Spencer on Morning Glories, marriage, writer and art, it's absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. His work is so, it's never crazy detailed, but the one thing that Joe Eisma does better than almost any other artist out there is acting. He can communicate what a character is thinking without having to ever have there be a line of dialogue, or there to be an inner monologue, or to be a thought balloon, or whatever you might have. Because it's just, his work on Morning Glories is absolutely fantastic, and is one of absolutely the best books out there for that, for this art style of having it concentrate really on the people and their emotions and what they're feeling and what they're thinking. It's really one of the only books that I can think of off the top of my head where it's just, wow. I mean, it's just everything that you see. Like I said, you don't even need to really read it. If it was just, I would just like to see like unlettered pages of his work so that I could get more of that feeling. But, having the words there is still just fine. But yeah, absolutely Eisma. So, the next couple of people that I do want to talk about are Colton Morley, who I mentioned previously as the artist for The Spider, and Francesco Francavilla. These are two, I put these two together kind of because their styles are so kind of wildly disparate. Is that Colton Morley, one of the things that he does is photorealism. He does amazing photorealism work. It's just, everything is so kind of slick, and just, it's almost heartbreakingly good, really, when you get down to exactly what he's put out there. His construction of panels is very unusual sometimes. He's someone that I've never seen before The Spider, but I definitely am looking out for anything that he's doing beyond this, because this is somebody who's really starting to hit his stride. And, I mean, the book itself is great, but, it wouldn't be, I don't think, as good if it didn't have an artist like Colton Morley on it. Francesco Francavilla, again, is kind of the other side of the coin, because he does figures that seem kind of, they're not, it's not photorealism. It's very kind of, his people are kind of skinny. But it's this is kind of Mazzucchellian work that he does so well, with a triumphant emphasis on color, and the palette that he works with. He makes everything very, again, he's an artist of mood, and from the kind of guest appearances that he's done here and there, obviously doing an issue of Swamp Thing, his recent arc that he was doing on Captain America and Black Widow that just ended this past week. Obviously, the various numbers of covers that he's done. He's a huge, he's very much into pulp, and kind of an older style of comic book art, but keeping it also very modern. And it's a very difficult balance to achieve, but he does it, and he does it flawlessly, and just, his work, it definitely is one of those things. I don't know how many times I've used his work on like the wallpaper for my phone or for my tablet or even for the computer. I mean, it's that good, Frankenvia's stuff. Next one I want to talk about is sorry, got lost in my place there. Yannick Paquette, who sadly is not doing Swamp Thing anymore, but every issue of Swamp Thing that he does, again, kind of from this school of thought of, we're going to take you out of the panel. We're going to construct these very organic panels. It's not going to be just your standard, 9-panel page or 4-panel page or what have you. We're going to go for this very unusual, because like exactly with fitting the style, fitting the character of the book and the characters that he's drawing, whether it's Alec or whether it's Abby or whether it's Arcane, you're always getting this feeling of, that he is replicating the emotional or physical state of the characters that he's drawing in the panels that he creates around them. And that is something that's it's a very hard balance. Admittedly, we've missed Yannick Paquette a lot this year, but his work is still so good that even the stuff that he has done still stands out very, very highly. The only other book that I know that he's done was Batman Incorporated, and this is pre the New 52 launch, so I don't want to go back and look at it, to be perfectly honest, because I hate Batman Incorporated, but I'm sure that the art that he does on it is very, very good. Interestingly enough, that brings me to the next person I want to talk about, which is Greg Capullo. Again, him, Snyder, Batman, it can't get much more magical than that. He's doing just an absolute knockout job from, this kind of, as I remember thinking about and talking about from the very first issue, is kind of like this Bruce Timm meets Todd McFarlane art style. Just the dynamic quality of all of his pages, the real sense of movement, the sense of weight, his shading work. It's all very precise, and it's very, it can be times very surreal. Of course, that more last year than this year, as far as surrealism is concerned, but it's definitely, it's a heightened realism. It's hyper real, with the emphasis on hyper, because his work is very it's very liney. It's very, very precise, but it has still this kind of not cartoony, but this very comic booky art style. And it suits this book to a T. Of course, there aren't all stories that would suit him to a T. Like I said, if he had done issue 12, which was focusing on Harper Row, it wouldn't have worked nearly as well as it did with Becky Cloonan. So, that's, sometimes I think it's a good thing that certain artists step aside. You can bring in a guest artist and have them do a story that really focuses on a different aspect of the Bat world. But by and large, the work that he's been doing on Batman has been fan-fucking-tastic. So it's just wonderful stuff. Next person I want to talk about is David Aja. Of course, I've been missing his work a lot since Immortal Iron Fist, and since Fraction and Brubaker left Immortal Iron Fist, and David Aja was no longer on it, and then they brought in Dwayne Straczynski, and I can't remember what artist that they brought in, but I did not like their stuff really at all, which is one of the reasons that I stopped collecting it. But to see him back with Hawkeye is just, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I mean, having again this kind of very minimalistic, again almost kind of a Mazzucchelli-esque vibe, um, but having still this dynamic sense of movement, this sense of being very simple, not overcomplicating his characters, but still giving everything this precision. Nothing feels like it's not real, but at the same time, I don't know. It's hard to really pin down the type of style that David Aja has, but it's just superb. Um, the next person I want to talk about, of course, that we haven't gotten to yet, is J.H. Williams III. Of course, I mean, is there perhaps a better artist working in comics right now? I think that there is, but I mean, it's a really, really short list. I mean, if you think of, just everything that makes you read Batwoman, particularly the first and this most recent arc, you're going to come back to the fact that, well, this is J.H. Williams on art. And his artwork is really almost beyond compare. Just, again, this kind of, this construction of the frame, the kind of, insane amount of detail that he puts into every single page. I mean, it's something so beautiful and can be so terrifying, again, just within the framework of the Batwoman book, it being very strange and very surreal, and, just everything. I mean, this is obviously definitely brought over from when he was doing Batwoman with Greg Rucka, doing just some masterful work there. This is one of those books that I'm very glad that he's been on. I'm not a huge fan of his writing, not a huge fan of it, but it is, it's very unusual. He puts a very unusual style to his writing, in as much as he does to his art. And his art, like I said, is really, it's just absolutely magnificent. And now, I would hesitate to say that these are my favorite two of the year, probably. But first person that I need to talk about, the next person that I want to talk about is Chris Samnee. Daredevil, Rocketeer. I mean, just everything that he's done with Chris Wade has been golden. It's just been fantastic. And despite the fact that it's not maybe the best art style for a superhero book, and maybe what I prefer to see, a Marcos Martin or even Paulo Rivera back on Daredevil, the answer to that question is no. I'm not really looking forward to a new artist on this book. I love Chris Samnee's stuff. It's very simple. It's very crisp. It may be a little too dark at some points in time, but when it gets light, it really makes up for that. And it's a gorgeous book to look at. And Samnee's art and his, just again, with the acting. You have these characters, and you have this real sense of dynamic art storytelling, but with the same time with a very strict focus on character and expression, and that's why I love Chris Samnee. But this brings me to who is my favorite artist of the year. My favorite artist of the year is Andrea Sorrentino. Doing iVampire. It's just, the book never ceases to amaze. It never ceases to be gorgeous. It never ceases to be frightening, I mean, absolute terror is kind of pulsing through each page. He makes vampires scary. I mean, this is not, again, it isn't, for instance, Ben Temple Smith on 30 Days of Night. Yeah, it is Ben Temple Smith. That kind of really, it reminds me very much of Gene Colan's work on Tomb of Dracula, which is arguably some of the best horror artwork of all time. But Sorrentino just does. I mean, his color palette, his extremely photorealistic, then merged with this otherworldliness. It has this incredibly magical vibe to it, and this fantastical yet real. So I mean, it's really hard to balance those two. J.H. Williams is very good at it, but I would say that Sorrentino is even better at it, and that also, I think, does have to do with the book and the storytelling that's involved in this book. Of course, he's not going to be doing I, Vampire for much longer. They're going to be bringing in Dennis Calero, who I did finally see something of his for the first time this past week in Masks #2. And I think we're pretty safe to say that the book is still in good hands as far as from an art standpoint. But it will definitely suffer for a lack of Andrea Sorrentino. But the fact that he's going from that book to the Green Arrow run that he's going to be doing with Jeff Lemire, that helps to kind of break up the two there. So let's talk about best writers of the year. Again, there are more than 10. There's 12 actually. But we'll just kind of get through this pretty quickly because I do want to get on to best single issues and best and then best series. So in kind of, I guess if you want to say last place, there's a tie, and it's Jason Aaron and Ed Brubaker. The reason Ed Brubaker is so low, he almost didn't even make it onto the list this year, which is astonishing to me because obviously, last year he was number 2 on the list. But it was just because, his Captain America run had taken such a dramatic downturn when he brought in other writers to do the dialogue. But of course his work on Fatale, really kind of bumped him into back into a slot. So it was really, one was dragging him down, the other one was picking him up. If he had just done Fatale this year, he would be higher on this list instead of just kind of edging in. But just really, like I said, I mean, just, the last arc of Captain America was extremely bad, and that's really, like I said, what brought him down so low. But Ed Brubaker, he's still got a lot of good stories to tell, and I think that Fatale is just the beginning. Whatever books we get next from him, I'm really, really looking forward to. Jason Aaron, of course, the only real experience that I had with him this year was from Wolverine and the X-Men. Wolverine and the X-Men very seldom disappoints. It's a terrific read, almost each and every issue. It did get to some weird points, particularly during the AVX crossovers. I kind of felt that it was losing its way, but then he would come back and he would do these very character-centric books. So it was kind of a wash, even when it wasn't on. And of course, some of his contributions to AVX itself weren't that great. So I felt that kind of, dragged it down. I don't read Thor: God of Thunder, but there it is. You can't do much about that. Next on the list is Nick Spencer. Of course, you have, again, kind of two ends of the spectrum. Not so good with the Ultimate Comics X-Men. Really good with his work on Thief of Thieves. Excellent work, of course, on him doing Morning Glories. I mean, there continues to be just just month after month, one of those books that is just like, I can't wait to read the next one. I need to find out what's going to happen next. And that's one of the things that Spencer does so well is, I mean, Morning Glories is really obviously his best work. I was very sad when they took him off of Thief of Thieves to replace him with James Asmus, but at least I had those 6 issues where he was writing the dialogue, and it was terrific stuff. And of course, Ultimate X-Men really just didn't work as a whole, until, of course, Brian Wood came in and just really revitalized it. And, of course, Morning Glory is still one of the best books out there. Next up is Two People. Again, kind of married together here. And that is Matt Fraction and Josh Fialkov. Josh Fialkov had maybe a little bit better of a resume last year because he was doing, aside from I, Vampire, he was also doing Last of the Greats. Those were 2 books that I thought were just amazing, and some of the work that I've read of his that was not as recent, but still, very good. I mean, so unbelievably good, like Echoes. I just got Tumor, which I haven't read yet, and his work on Elk's Run. But I mean, this year it was I, Vampire, and I, Vampire just kept putting it out there and kept being, close to, if not the book of the week, every week that it came out. He's a master storyteller. Some of the work that he was doing on the digital-only releases of Legends of the Dark Knight was also quite good. But nothing came close to the work that he was doing on I, Vampire, which is definitely one of the high points of the DC New 52 still. Which is more than I can say for Jeff Lemire. Now, Jeff Lemire's Animal Man has kind of gone up and down. It's been, it's been, of course, unfortunately with him going off of Frankenstein Agent of Shade, but then bringing him into Justice League, and taking over Justice League Dark, that brought this book to a new level. And just everything that he was doing was, all of a sudden, it's like as soon as Rot World really kicked in, as soon as it started, Jeff Lemire went, the quality of the work just went way up for me. And just became an absolute joy to read that book again, as it was when it first started. And, of course, Justice League Dark has just been incredible. So, just, absolutely great stuff being put out by him. Next person I need to talk about is Greg Rucka. Of course, he only did The Punisher for 16 issues, and of course, he's doing Punisher Warzone right now, but this is a consummate storyteller. Not necessarily at the top of his game, but it's pretty fucking close. I haven't read Stumptown yet. I'm waiting for a trade on that one, which is where I'm sure that I'll get more out of it. But it's just, wow. I mean, the work that he did on The Punisher and is still doing for The Punisher is still amazing. I mean, there's just I mean, such great storytelling in each and every issue. Again, kind of defying the logic of going with the internal monologue of the Punisher that had been, basically kind of verboten since Garth Ennis really, pushed, through his own agenda on Punisher and Punisher Max. But wow, I mean, just Rucka did some incredible storytelling, particularly with the creation of the character of Rachel Cole Alves. I mean, a great female character, a great, kind of protagonist slash antagonist. She never, of course, reaches any kind of villainous proportions or anything like that, but, obviously this is someone that unfortunately made mistakes. And so it felt very real. This felt like a very real character. And Punisher felt, for the first time, really felt realistic. Because he's always been kind of the invincible, hero, despite however many bullets he might take. He always seems to be invincible, but he really brought this kind of, this very dark realism to the character of the Punisher. So, I mean, that to me is a huge step up for the Punisher, despite how great Garth Ennis' stuff with him was, and it was tremendous. It was really fun. It was really well written. It was very, bloody and gory and dark. But this, with the creation of Ozzy Clemens and Walter Bolt, Nora Winters, not his creation, but, obviously working her in, everything felt like this could have been like an HBO series. That's really kind of how I feel about it. And just absolutely, just great stuff from beginning to end. And I, of course, now need to talk about Jonathan Hickman. From his work on Fantastic Four, certain issues of Fantastic Four, let me put it that way. I was not a huge fan of FF, especially after it got to a certain point. I was just like, I can't even read this anymore. But his work on, Ultimate Comics Ultimates, his work on Manhattan Projects. I mean, you have some such good storytelling there. And just, again, Hickman is the writer that will never leave you thinking, well, that was dumb. No, he will never be dumb. He will always put out something that is really fiercely intelligent. And it will always be filled with big ideas and big science and, questions about, just the questions about life. It's like, it's almost like he's kind of like, I would almost equate him to someone like, or particularly with the Manhattan Project, almost someone like Stanley Kubrick. He has this kind of very surreal storytelling process. Bless you. And it's really something to admire. Even if it doesn't always seem to work, at least you're guaranteed that it's going to be smart. Bless you. So now let's move on to Brian K. Vaughan. And Brian K. Vaughan, he did Saga. I don't really need to say any more about that. Next, and this is going to surprise some people, but I definitely have to say that another amazing writer that's out there is Brian Michael Bendis. Did he totally fuck up with Avengers vs. X-Men? Yes, he did. Did he kind of bone himself with some of the other stuff that he did? Yes, he did. Avengers, the flagship Avengers title, got totally almost unreadable. But then, he was doing fantastic work with New Avengers. He was doing fantastic work with Ultimate Spider-Man. Obviously, fantastic work with Spider-Man. So, I mean, this to me, it's, he's still a great writer when he wants to be. It's really kind of up to him. He will get into it, and he will eventually. If he's not feeling like it's going to work, you get the sense that he kind of paints himself into corners sometimes that he can't extricate himself from. But even with the books that I loved of his, I know that he did that a couple of times. But by and large, just he's still a pretty fantastic storyteller. So I have to give the man some pretty mad props for everything that he's been able to do over the course of the last however many years with Marvel. Not that he's going anywhere, but he is. He's now just down to like one title. He's just doing all new X-Men, and that in and of itself has been pretty fucking great so far. So, I'm thumbs up for Brian Michael Bendis. And now on to the best two of the year. This was a tough duel. Really it was, because you have two writers that seem to be almost at the top of their game, despite what they may have done before. One is a young writer coming up. One is an older writer who's been writing for years and years and years and years and years. But one just ended up making more memorable stories than the other one. And so the runner-up, and again, it's almost a tie, but the runner-up is Mark Waid. Daredevil. Obviously the first couple of issues of Indestructible Hulk, Rocketeer, Cargo of Doom. He's going to be doing the Green Hornet for Dynamite pretty soon. And so I got to start picking that up. But just everything the man is doing it borders on magical work. There have been a couple of issues that have been a bit iffy as far as Daredevil has been concerned, but by and large, he's written some unforgettable stuff. And, just Rocketeer, Cargo of Doom being such an excellent piece of work. It's just, Indestructible Hulk, the way that it's started out so far, the only real problem with it is kind of, Lenny Liu's art. But he's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's a superstar artist. I can understand why, but I still think that his work needs refinement for Indestructible Hulk. But when all is said and done, Mark Waid, his encyclopedic knowledge of books, of characters, of times and places, being able to revisit the past and bring it into the present, and just really turning Daredevil around. This is why this guy won, both the Eisner and the Harvey Awards for Best Writer, is because of the series work that he's been doing. So it's just like I said, it was so close, but ultimately the number one spot, as it was last year, goes again to Scott Snyder. American Vampire, Swamp Thing, Batman. He is a magic maker. He keeps getting better. It's it's almost impossible for someone you just really feel like you got introduced to seem to really be almost at the top of their game, but still understanding that they have better work out there, that there's going to be better stuff that they're going to end up doing. And Scott Snyder is that guy. He is the writer in which we will follow wherever he takes us, and odds are we're going to be continually surprised, we're going to be continually astonished, we're going to be continually amazed with the quality of his work. Is it a little wordy at sometimes? You bet it is. He's an English major, he's an English teacher. But, when it comes down to it, even the stuff that is overly verbose ends up working. And there hasn't been a writer of the character of Batman that has understood Batman as well as he does in a really long time. And this is why, sadly, he's leaving Swamp Thing. He's got, of course, his independent series, The Wake, I believe it's called, coming up. His new horror series, American Vampire, is going to be taking a bit of a hiatus while he's doing The Wake. Of course, we've got, his Man of Steel with Jim Lee coming up this year, or next year, I should say, 2013. But for right now, his orchestration of Death of the Family in Batman, and even everything that's come before that with with Night of the Owls, and this whole, incredible saga that he's written with these two, with these books, has been something that is just utterly fantastic. So he just gets it. He gets what his audience needs, what they want, and he delivers 10 times out of 10. So on to my favorite issues of the year. I'm not going to get too heavy into these, but these, I'm just going to kind of go over what they were and what they meant to me personally. And yeah, we got 15 here. And we're going to start with Captain America number 19. Of course, this was Brubaker and Epting's final issue of Captain America. It was a brilliant finale to, sadly, kind of an underwhelming series at times, especially, like I said, during that last arc, but everything preceding that was pretty amazing, and of course to have him reteam with Epting for this finale just secured him a very, very special place in my heart for this year. It's just so good. Next up is Spider-Man number 4, which is of course the issue of Spider-Man when Peter Parker goes to visit the home of Aunt May to also find Gwen Stacy there. And it's the big kind of confab before he, sets out to leave. And it's an incredibly emotional issue. It's so strongly written. You get a sense of, Sarah Pichelli doing art. You get a sense of kind of the heartbreak, but also the tenderness, the beauty that Peter Parker's life, this kind of tragedy that seems to kind of play out, but every once in a while he gets a reminder that he is still pretty blessed in his life. And of course, it was a fun issue as well, but more than anything, it was an incredibly emotional issue. It was, it kind of brings a tear to your eye when you read it. So, when story writing is that good and that strong is really when you have something special. Next up is New Avengers number 28. This was something I knew as soon as I read it, pretty much, that was going to be on kind of my year-end top single issues. And of course, this is the issue of, it's the AVX crossover in which Hawkeye, Spider-Woman, and Luke Cage are imprisoned on Utopia. And they go up against the different X-Men that are there to guard them to make their escape from Utopia. And just as everything works up, of course, you've got Mike Deodato on art, Brian Bendis, of course, is writing it, and you've got everything building up to this tremendous kind of like, yay, climax, and then rug, thump, right out from under you, and you see that they've basically been playing, that they're not captives in a cell, that they're literally imprisoned within their own minds. So, you might say it's a little Matrixy or whatever, but I say to that, who cares what the inspiration might have been, just as long as it works. And God, did that issue work. Absolutely. Thief of Thieves, number 6. Now, this is the pinnacle of the series. This is when it was at its very best. And this, of course, was the issue in which everything about the series is turned on its head, where you see, our intrepid detective thinks that she's got everything on Redmond and his whole group, and it turns out that he's just been playing her the whole time. And it's something that's just, it's glorious. It's so well written. Sean Martinborough's art is just terrific. Spencer writes, the dialogue, and, Kirkman plotting the story with such a sense of, we're going to take kind of the heist conventions that we've been playing around with for the series, and we're going to, we're going to dip it on its ear, and we're going to give you something that you didn't expect, that you didn't see coming. And it was one of those great surprises where it's like, I didn't expect this series to get this good. And for one shining issue, it was perfect. Next up is Fantastic Four number 600. This was epic storytelling from Jonathan Hickman and Steve Epting. The return of Johnny Storm to the fray, born, of course, out of FF. And you had, all of a sudden, it was, boom, smack, the whole book all of a sudden just exploded in vitality. It was just amazing to read. It was an incredibly, important story. I mean, the B stories that followed, that were written by Hickman, of course, with different artists intermixing, of how Johnny actually didn't die in his supposed kind of suicide play, to save the world. And we see how that took form, and just, how he is, basically he's the ruler of the negative zone now. Just, wow, I mean, just great stuff. And just, terrific storytelling. Swamp Thing number 12. Of course, this is the first real issue of Swamp Thing into Rot World. And it's just the whole kind of presentation of the idea with Buddy and Alec traveling into Rot World, and, as they go further down this skeletal ladder, they see that it's basically all a trap by Anton Arcane. And, it's kind of the beginning of the realization that they're essentially in hell. And it's been a year that they've been down there. Intermixing with all the above ground play, with Abby trying to help, with Abby and Maxine kind of working together to help kind of dispel the unmen and the the agents of the rot that have come to eliminate them, and so on and so forth. So it was such a heart pounder of an issue. It was just fantastic, just absolutely great stuff. Fatale number 10. Of course, this was the finale of the second arc with Miles and Josephine and Nicholas, and it was just her kind of embracing her power despite how hard she's fought to make sure that she doesn't abuse it ever again, but how Miles makes this ultimately futile, but this tremendous effort to save her and to avenge the death of Susie. And then, of course, we have this epilogue with Nicholas Lash, and how essentially he's just been totally fucked ever since the moment that he met Josephine, and the whole, again, the mystery of the manuscript and how it ends up getting published while he's in prison. Who wanted it? Why did they want it? Why was it published? It's like this descent into kind of this, again, this hell that, surprisingly for a Brubaker character in a book like this, he did not create. He's just a victim of circumstance. He did really nothing to exacerbate the situation other than trying to find out the truth. And which is a rare thing for a Brubaker character, because usually when they end up in their kind of respective hells, it's a hell of their own design. It's something that they've been falling into all the way with every motion that they make forward. They're just tumbling down into this, this very, this hell. I can't think of any more adjectives, or I should say, any more synonyms, if you will. Anyway, moving along. Daredevil number 15. Now, this is the issue, of course, in which we have the introduction of the situation that Matt Murdock is in, and the introduction of the nanomites that actually take away his other senses, and his incredible race as he tries to head out of Latveria, and it was just, from beginning to end, it was just amazing storytelling from Wade and Samney. It could not get more nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat, suspenseful for Daredevil, and just kind of more heartbreaking. And that's really how it ended up. It's just being like, oh god, god damn it. Just a fantastic issue. That leads us, interestingly enough, into Rocketeer Cargo of Doom number 2. Where basically we have already had an introduction to our characters and the introduction to the situation, for the most part, but then we have this, we have Cliff flying off to the ocean liner, and seeing what he can find out, seeing if he can find out the mystery of who exactly is trying to who wants the Rocket Pack now, who's trying to, kind of mess with his life. We've got, Betty and Sally kind of at each other's throats. PV and, Carl are kind of in the background, and they don't know what to make of everything that's going on. And then, of course, Cliff and all of kind of his bumbling glory gets captured, and then you have the reveal where, what exactly this cargo is. Of course, this cargo is dinosaurs from Skull Island. It's not specifically stated that it's Skull Island, but if you look at the page and if you know what I'm talking about, yes, it's Skull Island where King Kong is from, and yes, they brought back dinosaurs. And that to me was just like, oh my god, this is so cool! This is so fun! I just love it. Next up is Wolverine and the X-Men number 17. This is the dupe issue with Mike Allred on art and Jason Aaron writing, probably other than Jerry Duggan, Brian Posehn, 20 more issues of Deadpool that we've had so far. Easily the funniest book of the year. This is just, it's such a incredibly hilarious book. It just, I mean, Dupe kind of, just being, this kind of all-purpose, he does, he, she, it, whatever, just him being kind of like this super lover. I mean, it's so awesome, man. And it's just, I mean, it was really, this was a magical book in just how much fun you had with it and how many times you laughed along with this book. It was just an absolute joy to read. It was just, absolutely the best issue of that book for that year. Now we're really getting into the top 5. Number 5 is I, Vampire number 12. It's funny because you thought when Fialkov wrote issue 6 of I, Vampire, when he killed his protagonist, that, well, it's not going to get more interesting than this. I mean, what can they do to top this? They've killed their main character. How do they bring him back, and how does it somehow get cooler? Well, guess what? What's the next step? What's the next thing that Fialkov can bring out of his bag of tricks to, again, up the ante of this book and continue to make it so shocking and so surprising and so incredible? What did they do? They didn't kill Andrew Bennett. They made him evil. And so to that, I had to take my hat off and say, bravo, Josh Fialkov and Andrea Sorrentino. You have, again, while this book it didn't need this extra vitality, you've made it, again, more vital. You've made it more interesting. You've made it more compelling, which is, for a series that was already, every issue was pretty fucking compelling, you got even more. It changed the book like that, and it was, again, glorious to behold. Number 4 is Hawkeye number 3. This, I have one word for this. Hawkeye, well, words. I have one phrase for this issue. Hawkeye head over the penis. I mean, just, the whole idea of getting new nocks for his arrows, and, him getting embroiled in this, some sexy time with this chick that he just met, and, we see kind of this great character work that Fraction puts in, mixed with this hilariously absurd situation that he gets mixed up in with this classic car. And, of course, Kate Bishop is there, and we're starting to feel that there's something more to their relationship, that she wants something more to their relationship other than just master and pupil. It was a work of just divinity. It was so good and so just absolutely just wonderful. It was a great, great, great issue. Number 3, Punisher number 16, the finale of the run on the Punisher. Heartbreaking, absolutely. Just it could not have gotten more raw and emotional. Just with we're contemplating the final fate of Rachel Cole Alves, but we're still left with this feeling of that even for a man like Frank Castle and for a woman like Rachel Cole Alves, that there is hope, that there is something that they're responsible for, that there is something that will, this lone red flower that is blossoming in the winter snow. It gives you this sense of that not everybody is alone out there, no matter how painful things might get, how low they think they've sunk. And it was an incredibly suspenseful read because you didn't know what was going to happen. You had no fucking clue as to what the final fate of Rachel Cole Alves would be, and whether or not it's the final fate, probably not. But that's the one thing that I have been enjoying reading Punisher Warzone just for what it's been doing, but I'm hoping to see some kind of resolution to the story of Rachel Cole Alves, because that's really what this book has been about from beginning to end. Frank Castle, of course, is a big player in it, but he's not really where the central story lies for this book. It's about Rachel, and this issue very much about her, and just the depths that she feels that she's sunk to, even though admittedly what she did was a mistake, but it's a mistake that she knows that she deserves punishment for. So it was just tremendous issue, tremendous work from Rucka and Chichetto, just creating just a fantastic, fantastic issue of comics. Number 2, Saga number 1. Because I was thinking about going with issue 4 to put on this list, but ultimately it was issue number 1 because it reintroduced Brian K. Vaughan to us. It brought this great gift that we felt had been unduly taken away from us because his respective series had ended. Why the Last Man was over, Ex Machina was over. So how do we exist as comic book fans in a world without Brian K. Vaughan for very long? And then all of a sudden, Saga number 1 comes along, and boom, it's like he never left. And you're just taken away by the characters, the story. The first page just says, you're going to be reading this, and you're going to love every fucking moment of it. From, the birth of Hazel to, the robot sex and the will and lying cat, and oh god, it was just so great. Such a great introductory issue to a great series. Number 1, best issue of the year. Once you read it, you said to yourself, yeah, this is probably going to be pretty fucking hard to top. And that is Batman number 13. The beginning of Death of the Family. From digging deep into the archives of Batman and Joker's history. From the opening scene with, not necessarily the opening, but the assault on the police station, the Claridge diamond, going back to, You'll Be Dead within 24 hours from Batman number 1. So this saga is spanned literally 70 years, over 70 years. this story has essentially been in the works. And from Capullo's art to Snyder's characterization of the Joker to everything, to the work that he puts in on making Batman not just someone who uses his fists a lot, but also making him the detective, which is something that so few writers get about Batman, is that he is kind of first and foremost, he's a detective. And that is something that Snyder has spent a great deal of time making sure that we are aware that Batman is indeed a detective. And that's how, more often than not, he's able to fight the crimes and solve the crimes that he needs to. I'm looking forward to when this is all over, when the whole death of the family is over, to seeing some one-offs by Snyder and Capullo, where we just have Batman, where we really just focus on, just kind of single crimes, not making a huge arc out of it, just giving us a couple of errant, like I said, just one-offs, where we could just say this was an episode of Batman and it worked because it's Snyder and Capullo, because the work that they've done on this book, it's unparalleled. Which brings us to the best series of the year. Let me just make sure here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we've got the top 15. Number 15 is New Avengers. There were a couple of missteps. I felt that the whole kind of story with Fong-Ji and everything that was kind of going on during AVX with the with the characters of with everything that was going on in Kunlun. I felt they spent a little bit too much time on that. It really slowed things down, but once it picked up, man, it picked up, and it picked up hard. Hey, I'd like to introduce you to our new kitty, who's right back there, who I'm pointing at right now. Daryl. We just brought him home this past Thursday. We adopted him from Arizona Animal Rescue, and his name is Daryl Dixon Cat, and he's awesome. Anyway, but New Avengers, just once it got, once it hit that issue that I was just talking about. And of course, how it built to this great finale of the end, this end time story arc, and Luke Cage leaving, and kind of the end of this incarnation of New Avengers. We knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be hard anyway, but with Bendis and Deodato just really working overtime and putting a lot of heart and solid work into this book, guys, just made it absolutely terrific. Number 14, Wolverine and the X-Men. Again, there are some issues I'm not a huge fan of, but by and large, this is an incredibly entertaining read. It's a captivating read. Jason Aaron, and whether it's Chris Bachalo or Nick Bradshaw or Mike Allred, you're pretty much guaranteed a pretty damn good read with pretty much every issue. There are some issues I think that are a little bit lesser. Like I said, the not this most recent issue, but the one just before it felt a little bit too much like one of the older issues of Uncanny X-Men. But, like I said, it can work its way out of that. I'm sure that Jason Aaron has good ideas to take us away from that. You know, this whole new incarnation of the Hellfire Club, the dupe issue, of course, is a classic almost instantly, and of course the shooting of Brew. Damn you, Jason Aaron, damn you, bring him back. Ow. Anyway, moving along. Number 13, Jennifer Blood. Despite the fact that I didn't really love the last issue, this is once Al Ewing took off with this book and brought it to the areas in which, yes, she's not just a vigilante, she is a fucking lunatic who thinks that they're doing the right thing, but in all reality, they just don't really care who they hurt and what guys and what innocents are sacrificed along the way in order for her to protect her family, which is really just her children. I mean, we saw the brutal death of her husband in order to protect her secret. The killing of all these innocent people, again, just to protect her secret and also to rip them off. I mean, it was like, holy fucking shit, what is going on here? But again, bring this bleak sense of humor, and that Al Ewing really took off with. The book had never been this good when it was under Garth Ennis, and that is saying something. When someone else is writing an ongoing series and it ends up being better than what Garth Ennis has been doing, you know you've got a writer that's pretty special, and you've got a book that's pretty special. Number 12 is the Manhattan Projects. This is a book so smart, so funny, so amazingly high concept, and it just, it's like Videodrome-esque head exploding just with almost every issue. But I find myself, the reason it's kind of low is because I find myself that because it has taken some really long breaks between issues. I don't mind that because I know that Hickman is really busy now, but I'm just worried that that will hurt the momentum of this book, because almost every issue has been a 5 out of 5, but it's just that they seem so far apart from one another, and because it is so smart and it is so high concept and it is sort of kind of over your head at some points in time, that looking into the future, I see it getting back to where it was, but I don't know how it's going to get there because of all the work that Hickman is doing right now. I mean, with essentially helping to really reshape the Marvel Now initiative. So I don't know. We'll see. Daryl, what are you doing in there? Anyway, number 11 is The Spider. Again, just, David Liss, Colton Worley, just doing some amazing pulp storytelling with modern storytelling sensibilities in a modern setting, but still somehow able to make the pulp work. This is really kind of the pinnacle of what Dynamite's doing right now as far as their kind of pulpish relaunch. They have The Shadow. That's been kind of hit and miss lately. Of course, the first issue, there's been a couple issues of that book which have been tremendous, but consistently The Spider has been extremely entertaining and extremely smart. Number 10 is Fatale. Just an incredible book, just great storytelling, just one of those books that just really grab you by the balls from the first issue on and just won't let go, because it's just great every step of the way. Number 9, here we go again, Rocketeer, Cargo of Doom. Just a fantastic book. You know, it's just this whole, you know, this whole route that they went. I mean, just with 4 issues, being able to tell such a simple, fun, incredibly entertaining pulpy story. It just, you know, and with, you know, with Mark Waid and Chris Samney, I mean, it looked great, it read great, it just felt really great. Number 8 is Morning Glories. Not as many 5 out of 5s this year as I would have liked for Morning Glories, but still the best Image title that's out there. Well, with one exception. Fatale, of course, is great, but Morning Glories just edges it out just by a couple spaces. Number 7 is Hawkeye. I mean, for a book that seemed to come out of nowhere and be so goddamn good, and to really kind of catapult Matt Fraction back into one of my favorite writers, and bringing back David Aja, and, you know, kind of introducing me to the work of Javier Pulido. I mean, it's just been such a fantastic run of these 6 issues so far. So I mean, it's coming out with pretty decent speed. So none of the issues have been any kind of disappointment to me at all. Again, this is one of those books that almost every week it's at the very top of pretty much each week that it comes out. Number 6, The Punisher. It's sad there weren't more issues of this book to go around this year, but just for everything that Greg Rucka was able to do with it, despite the fact that it didn't always have Marco Cicchetto, he was able to just create such a classic story arc for Frank Castle, and again creating this, these new characters that we really got to know and got to know well. Number 5 is Daredevil. Waid, Samney for the win. I mean, as far as that really tops my list of everything Marvel for this year. Just continues to amaze, continues to take your breath away, and continues to be exciting, vital, and just everything that you want to read a comic book for. Number 4, Swamp Thing. Again, it never failed to disappoint, but especially once it got into Rot World, we're entering into a whole new area here, boys and girls. So, I mean, this is just, it's more on the mark, excellent storytelling from Scott Snyder and Marco Rudy and Francesco Francavilla and Yannick Paquette and Becky Cloonan. Just really incredible stuff. Scary, moody, a really solid horror title. Number 3, iVampire. Again, definitely one of the best of DC's New 52. It never, ever, ever disappoints. It always works hard, and it works well. And it's a little bit of heaven from the place that you would least expect it. Who would have thought that someone could bring Andrew Bennett out of the early 1980s, which is where we last pretty much saw him, and bring him into this new world and make him a star, really, despite the fact that the book is not selling as well, nearly as well as it should be. But thankfully, its first trade sold pretty damn well, so that is a big step up. Step in the right direction. And, I look forward to everything Josh Fialkov does, and like I said, it's a sad thing that Andrea Sorrentino is not going to be on the book for much longer, but I think we're going to be pretty good with Dennis Calero as well. Number 2, it's Saga. Just, again, top of the pile. Every week it's out. Every new issue is just... You just thank God that Brian K. Vaughan is writing books again. And, you know, bringing Fiona Staples along, an artist that I was wholly unfamiliar with, never saw anything that she had done before, and the fact that they managed to craft this series into something that is very, very, very entrenched in character, but still gives us these amazing settings, these, you know, bizarre, strange, wonderful characters, and bizarre, strange, and wonderful situations that they keep finding themselves in. It's just, I mean, you know, the character of Alana is probably my favorite female character in comics right now, even though she's not quote-unquote the star, but it's an ensemble work, so you can't really, you know, say, well, you know, Marco's the star or Alana's the star, but, I mean, just what a great new character, and what a bunch of great new characters, from Prince Robot IV, to the Will, to the Stalk, to, you know, I mean, just everybody. I mean, everybody is a fantastic, vivid character, and that's what Brian K. Vaughan does so fucking well, is character. And it's something that, unfortunately, is all too rare in comic books these days. Number 1, if you didn't guess it before, you're gonna know it now, and it's Batman. Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, guest appearance by Becky Cloonan, and the annual, you know, of course, you know, working with, you know, the B stories that popped up, Raphael Albuquerque, James Tynion, Jock. It's perfect. And now it's entered, I mean, just when we thought, I mean, maybe Snyder had kind of played himself out a little bit with Night of the Owls. No, because we've got the Joker now, and every move that he makes is just that Snyder makes, as far as capturing the essence of who these characters are, is something absolutely breathtaking. So there you have it. I know it's been a long one. We're feature length at this point in time. We've made a movie. If you've been watching the whole time, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, please subscribe. This is going to be one of those videos that you're probably going to go back to a couple of times to kind of pick up where you left off. Again, I'm on iTunes, and, you know, I'm hoping that, I'm really hoping that you enjoyed this, because this is kind of my Christmas gift to you. And more than anything, I want to thank all of you who have stuck with me again. I know I've been on this a lot lately, but it's the truth. You guys keep me going. You know, the feedback that you give, so on and so forth. Alright, here it comes. This is how much I love you. Those of you who have not... Okay, so far, nobody has gotten the Avengers character right. So, here's where I change the rules. Those of you who have guessed before, you can guess again. And this time I have 2 figures that you can guess on. And whoever gets them first, you can guess, like I said, twice for this video only. If you get it right, you have to go back to the other comments and see what's already been put out there so you can make sure that you know who it is. The second new caveat, anybody is welcome to guess now. I will be sending these transcontinental. That's the way it's going to work from here on out. 2 guesses, and you, all of you out there who are across the pond, if you get it right, you get it. One of them, because there are 2 now. So if one person comes on, guesses right twice in this video, that person will get both of them. If one person gets it right, another person gets it right, but remember, it comes in order. So whoever is the first commenter that I see that gets it right wins the swag. One of the swag, or maybe both if you're lucky enough to guess. So if you have guessed before, I will allow you to guess again. But if you've guessed before, you only get 1 guess. Okay, but you can, like I said, if you have not guessed before, you can guess twice. If you are in one of the other places around the world that happens to listen or watch, respond to this video in the comments down there, and who knows, you might win some cool Avengers. Who knows? So that is it. I'm done. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, terrific Kwanzaa, whatever whatever other, to all you Wiccans out there, blessed be the solstice, and, be safe, have fun. I've already got one of my Christmas gifts for my wife here. It is a little tiny bat signal. See? You can see the bat signal. Oh, it's getting bigger. My other one is a little one that my wife also got for me. You can't see it because I won't let you. No, just because it's too hard to show on this camera. But I can't wear a hoop earring to work, but I can wear a stud. And this is a stud that has the shield emblem in it. So how fucking cool is that? How awesome is my wife? So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Excuse me. Don't forget the new rules. And we will see you probably... I'm sure that I'm going to do a review of Amazing Spider-Man 700 when it comes out this week. But aside from that, I'm probably not going to see you until the new year. So we will see you in 2013. You will still be my new comics, bitches! So, again, thank you for sticking it out with me for another year. And we will see you in 2013. So, I'm James Donnelly. You are now leaving the Shadow Gallery. And always, always, always remember to stay in the shadows.